Okay, we're rolling.
Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I want to talk about a little music today. A little bit of music on the show. I'm a musician. I've been playing guitar, bass, drums, and piano for 45 years. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I have a lot of great musical equipment, and I've been on stage and in studio. Yeah, it's been a great ride so far, and I just love all things music. When an instrumentalist goes into a music store, it feels like the beginning of a joke. When an instrumentalist goes into a music store, one of the things we come face to face with is, what am I going to play when I go in to play that and try that guitar? What am I going to do when that piano's in front of me? What do I play when I hop behind the kit and bang away on the drums? Like, yeah. We got to come up with something, right? Yeah. So it's one of the things when we go into a store, we want to go and try the equipment, but at the same time, everyone's a musician. Like, talk about a really nasty crowd to be noodling around with a new piece of gear that you've never played before. You got to come up with something. And there's no Stairway to Heaven. That's not allowed. There's a bunch of songs we're not allowed to play when we go to try these guitars and stuff. And a topic has come up in two different episodes of my show around self-awareness. And it's almost the exact same example has been shared by two different people. One by Nick, who was on the show recently. And then also I just did an episode kind of with John Mayer and Conan O'Brien, where they were talking about music, and Conan is kind of interested in playing and learning the guitar, and John obviously knows how to do that very well, and practicing in public and playing in front of people and all of that stuff. And it's interesting, these two examples fit together really well when we talk about being self-aware versus being self-absorbed. Self-aware, being aware of yourself, or being self-absorbed with yourself. I've seen both in podcasting and wanted to chat with you about that today. So I'm glad you're here. Let's go. So self-absorbed and self-aware for podcasters. The simple truth is that every podcast that we create, every episode, every show, starts with you, starts with me. It's our voice, it's our story, it's our ideas, it's our creativity. And then from there, we get to build our audience, our name, our influence. It all starts with us. It's not a bad thing. It's actually necessary when creating a podcast. But somewhere along the way, something happens. One path in podcasting can lead to being self-aware. Another path can lead to being self-absorbed. And what's the scary part here then? They both sound really familiar. Self-aware, self-absorbed. But they're completely different to your audience. And that's the key part here. Being a self-aware podcaster asks questions like, is this helping my listener? Fill in the blank, whatever it is. Content, podcast episode length, show art, guest, everything. Is it helping my listener? Another question a self-aware podcaster would ask themselves would be, am I being clear as a podcaster? Like, am I clearly sharing my thoughts, or am I just talking? Am I creating a safe place for others, or am I just filling it up with myself? And self-awareness starts to sound like telling stories that are intentional, having some thoughtful pauses, asking better questions, letting guests shine without talking over them, without trying to fill in the gaps, without leading the guest, without being the hero, admitting that you don't have all the answers and being okay with it. It's not about being perfect as a podcaster. It's about being present as a podcaster. And when we're self-aware, our audience feels seen and heard and respected. And that's what builds trust as a podcaster, when we're self-aware. The opposite now here would be self-absorption. What does self-absorption feel like as a podcaster? Unlike a self-aware podcaster, a self-absorbed podcaster goes the other direction. A self-absorbed podcaster isn't always obvious, but you can feel it as a listener. It kind of sounds like talking at your audience instead of with your audience. It's constantly bringing up the conversation back to yourself. I'm a great podcaster. I know what I'm saying. I've been doing this a long time. I have the experience. I have the awards, the recommendations. I have notoriety in the space. I've earned my spot to be here. I. Self-absorbed podcasters interrupt guests because they're so caught up in themselves that they don't let the guests speak. And it's really frustrating for the guests. They over-explain their own story without purpose and without logical connection with what's going on in the show itself. They ignore feedback and they ignore their audience and the needs of their audience. It's not always intentional, though, just so you know. But the impact, though, the feeling for the audience, I've felt it as a listener. It's real. It's not about connection in this way. When you're self-absorbed, it's about creating distance from yourself and from your audience. There's a big difference there. So what attracts and what repels when we talk about self-absorbed and self-aware? When we look at our audience, there's a few things that attract our audience to us. Authenticity, intention, stories that actually have a purpose, curiosity about other people, even maybe at the expense of yourself, clarity and respect for time, your guest time, your listener's time, and being honest and open emotionally to connect with people at a deeper level. So if those are things that draw audiences to us, then what are some things that repel an audience from us? That pushes people away, keeps them at arm's length. When our content is ego-driven, all about us, all about our story, all about me, look what I can do. You should hire me because all of my accolades and all my awards and all of my accomplishments, everything that I have done. You're so lucky to have time with me. Rambling without direction in your show. Conversations that feel really heavily weighted toward yourself, very one-sided when you're with a guest. A lack of growth. They're happy with what they learned 20 years ago and they haven't learned anything new since. They repeat the same things, thinking it's valuable, but it's overused and sometimes now irrelevant. Those stories don't hold water anymore, and they haven't learned anything new lately. That's some of the things that push people away from us as podcasters. Every episode that we create as a podcaster allows for a choice to be made. You're either going to build something with your audience or you're going to broadcast something at them. I choose to build something with my audience, with my guests, with the people that are in my world, rather than preaching at them. Self-aware podcasters evolve. They listen, they adjust, they grow alongside of their audience. There's a growth trajectory. You can feel like they're getting better. You can feel like they're learning new things. They're interesting people to be around when they're self-aware. Self-absorbed podcasters, They wonder why things aren't working anymore. They wonder where everybody went. They wonder why their audience is shrinking. They wonder why people move on to other people and don't stay with them. They feel like they're being abandoned. They feel like people around them aren't committed to them. How dare you leave me because I am the best? Don't you see my awards behind me? Right. They never change and they never grow. And because of that, their audience grows past them. And they're stuck where they used to be, living in the past. That's a dangerous place to live as a content creator. There's a really simple check-in I think that all of us could make. I do this for myself as well. Before you hit record, remind yourself, who is this episode for? What is my audience going to walk away with at the result of this episode? Am I adding value or am I just adding noise to the space? Do I really need to comment on this? Do I really need to share my thoughts, my opinions, my views on this topic? Do I have something to say? Or am I just wanting to be heard? It's a small shift, but I think it can actually change how we approach our podcast. As podcasters, our voice matters so much. Like the words that we say and how we craft our content, how we show up, it really means a lot to people. Again, you're building this relationship over time with your audience, right? They come to expect you on their phone on a certain day, on a regular basis. That's kind of what they expect. The challenge for you, I think, is just to be intentional. It's really hard to be self-absorbed when you're aware of your audience, when you're aware of your impact, and you're aware of the consequences of bad decisions, and you're aware of successes when you do things right, when you put the time and effort into creating a great show for your audience. All of these things work together for you as a creator. It's something for us to keep in mind. I want to share the clips I talked about with Nick, who was on my show recently, and then also with John Mayer, talking about an example of, in Nick's case, we'll do this one first, where a guitar player comes in who is totally like not even aware of who else is in the room, and they're coming in to play a guitar and they just drown everything else out. And in the background, there's someone else playing guitar that you can't hear over the noise of the first guitar player. The second guitar player is not interested in loud. They're interested in quality. And this is Nick's story. He worked at a music store. And it was called Sam Ash. And here's him talking about it and a little piece of wisdom that he heard on the job in the music store from a coworker, and it was very well placed. And then after this, we're going to talk about John Mayer. But here's Nick talking about this example that happened to him in the past.
And I worked at Sam Ash a number of years, different times. As a musician, you bounce in and out of that sort of stuff. And I remember being at Ash and hearing different people come in and play. So I ran the guitar department at one point, was primarily in guitars and live sound and all of that. And there was an older guy that had been there for, 20 years, 30 years or something, and would just drop these little truth bombs as he walked by to get coffee. And every time he'd be so just calm, almost like how I'm sure you do at times, like, oh, here's this little nugget. And you'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, come on back, John. What are you doing? And he was just like getting coffee. And at one point, there was some kid that was playing like extremely loud and some really high gain, like Dimebag Darrell, crunchy amp. It was like a diesel or something we had. And he was just like, scoop all the mids, turn all the gain up. And had some like Jackson, whatever, just like edgy pointed guitar. And he's just banging at it. Like he's playing drums on a damn thing, just like, "Dun, dun, dun, dun." And I'm a metalhead. I enjoy metal, but also, yo, bro, chill out. Like he was just going at it, and he was so loud. And this guy John was walking by to get coffee, and he was like, "It's always the loud ones that have no idea what they're doing. The ones you don't hear are the ones that know exactly what's going on."
Being loud, being brash, being opinionated, being the center of attention, being self-absorbed, being unaware of others in the room. That's not how we show up as a podcaster. That's not how you show up as an interviewer for a guest on your show. It's not how you show up with your audience. It's not how you show up at a conference. It's not how you show up when you're guesting on someone else's show. It's not how you show up in life. Don't be the loud one in the room. Don't be the one that's totally unaware that anyone else exists on this planet. It's not how we do it. Conan and John were talking about the fact that Conan likes to practice guitar and he finds it meditative and relaxing just to noodle around on the guitar. And they started talking about, do we rehearse in public? Like pull out a guitar on a plane or somewhere like an airport and just start practicing scales and stuff. And for Conan, he likes the idea of doing it, and John, not so much. And it comes down to Conan not being known for guitar. So it's kind of a novelty, like, oh, cool, you got a guitar. And then John pulling out a guitar, it's like, well, that's his job. So yeah, he would have a guitar. But John doesn't like the idea of walking around with a guitar in hand to the extent that Conan does, which is interesting to think about. But here's John and Conan talking about being seen in public and the expectations of a guitar, and John's preference for how he shows up in life when it comes to talking about guitars. It's very interesting. Kind of the same thing as Nick said, but in a different context through John's lens. Here's John.
I have embarrassment around like having the guitar on me. I remember watching the movie La Bamba, and Richie Valens was walking through high school with the guitar on his back, no case.
Yeah.
And I was always just like, you can't do that. You can't have it out. I play very quiet. If I go to Guitar Center, I actually play extremely quietly. I found out that people who really know how to play quietly and people who don't play very, very loud.
Right.
As a rule of thumb. They just have no... I think it's two things. It's not having a point of reference for, like, don't do that to other people.
Right.
But they also have no self-awareness.
Right.
So you don't have to be the loudest guitar in the room. You don't have to be drowning everyone else with the volume of your voice, your playing, your content, your opinions, your interruptions. It's okay to let someone else lead. And as a musician, I can tell you, being on stage with some of the most amazing musicians I've ever played with, sometimes my role in the band is to fill up the background and stay out of the way. Just stay out of the way. The show's not always about you. The show's not always about me. Sometimes my role is just to be that solid piece of the music in the background that makes the song go. To be the rhythm, to be the bass, to be the drums, to be the keys, to be the guitar. And someone else is out at the front getting all the accolades. Someone else is out there getting all the attention. And my role in there is not to compete with them so that I'm not coming from a place of feeling inadequate and I feel like I need to be equal to or above the people I share the stage with. There's times when I just need to know my spot. I need to know my place and shut my face. That's what you need to do in a band situation. We're making music together. When everybody's competing for the spotlight in a band, you can tell. And it's confusing, it's disjointed, there's no harmony, there's no music. It's a competition at that point. And as podcasters, we need to show up not to compete with our audience, not to compete with our guests, not to compete with the other shows. We got to be okay with being okay with who we are and knowing our role in that moment, in that music, in that space, and be okay with not always being the limelight, not always being the one center stage, spotlight glowing in our eyes, all eyes on us. Sometimes you need to move to the passenger seat. Sometimes you need to move out of the spotlight and allow the light to shine bright on your guest or your audience or your content. When it's all about you, it's not about anybody else. Keep that in mind. When it's all about you, it's not about anybody else. If you need help with your show, let me know. If you want to make music together, beautiful podcast music, howtopodcast.ca. Talk soon. Hey, if you found value in the show, I'd really appreciate you going over to our Buy Me a Coffee. Check it out. People have been wonderfully kind and helping support the show by purchasing Dave a coffee. And, you know, my coffee is generally always like, I got a quarter of a cup and I'm like, I should have drank all that. I need to refill. So if you can help the show, awesome. For you that have a Buy Me a Coffee or considering it, keep in mind too that you can set up like a Patreon style of monthly support for your show through Buy Me a Coffee, where you can set up levels and people can pay at different levels for different amounts. And it's a monthly ongoing payment, not just a single coffee purchase. So I love that for us as podcasters, that we can start building into our community and give them extra value. You can set the tiers, you can set the bonuses and what's available at each tier. I wouldn't go too high, but I wouldn't go too low as well. And set up different tiers and let your audience do that. I've actually set it up and I've already had my first membership, which is outstanding. Ralph, thank you. It's great to have people in our world that support us as podcasters, and Buy Me a Coffee allows you to do that Patreon style without being on Patreon. So if you want to, and you already have Buy Me a Coffee, you're considering between the two, try that. Because again, Buy Me a Coffee allows you to have the benefit of one-time coffee purchases or monthly, like a Patreon. They also have a storefront. And you can create, like if you're an author, you could have a bonus chapter that didn't make it in your book. People can buy that. You could have a private podcast that's only available through paid access to that private, non-public facing podcast. So you can have something very special, very unique, and use your storefront on Buy Me a Coffee to be the way to handle all the transaction fees and the credit cards and all that. There's a setting also in Buy Me a Coffee I'd encourage you to turn on where you will cover any kind of credit card fees for anybody that gives to your show through Buy Me a Coffee. I turn that on. I don't want you to have to pay a credit card fee to support my show, so I'll eat that cost. So think about that. Buy Me a Coffee. It's there on the howtopodcast.ca website in the show notes. Thanks for your support. We'll talk to you soon. You're still here. Great. This is a little bonus stuff at the end just for you and me. You know, spend a little bit more time together. Thank you for listening to the entire episode and sticking around to the very end. I've been doing these little bonus things at the end to connect with you further and to honor and thank you for helping my podcast to be played all the way to the end. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Not everybody knows this is even here. The question I had from a podcaster recently was, Dave, if I put my content or my community behind a paywall, what's the downside? It's a great question. If you put any of your content in a private YouTube playlist or a private podcast feed or behind a paywall, like a Patreon or a Buy Me a Coffee has an option for this now too. Whenever you put your stuff behind something that requires a login, that requires a special permission, it's not public facing for the world. So you're not getting any search engine juice for private feeds because it's not publicly available. That just makes sense. When you put your community behind a paywall, then only people who have the resources to actually be a part of your community then can participate. And then it becomes more of an exclusive private members club, which is fine if that's your intent. But again, nobody's going to find that through a Google search or an AI search. They're not going to find your private community and be able to get in there and see what's happening. if you are going to do something private, my suggestion is to have a welcome mat. And the welcome mat would be something free that explains the private content, the private community, so that people can find it and that people get a taste of it before they commit to paying for it. We don't want to give people any buyer's remorse where they sign up for something and it's not what you said it would be. It's not what they expected. I did this with a couple years ago, and they have like a mastermind thing, and they promised the world if you signed up. I signed up, and about 20 minutes in, I realized that the couple never comes to the meetup, the group that they created. They have it run by admins, and all they are is the face of the group, and you don't see them. They never come. You never have access to them, even though they said you would, and you'd have better access if you paid. You don't. And it was disappointing, to say the least. And I quickly asked for a refund, and they're like, why? Why are you leaving? I'm like, because you're not here. You said you'd be here, and you're not here. I'm here with your admins, fellow people who follow you. They're the ones I'm communicating with, not you. And you promised. The promise you made on all of your posts weren't true. And I signed up for access to you, not access to your admins, not access to a wall of videos to watch. Like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you. And they were disappointed to see me go, but at the same time, I felt like I was being misled. If you're going to create a private world for your podcast in your community, just remember that it's not always visible through the search, through the internet. And the content you put there is not going to be widely available to the world, for the most part. So are you going to put your best stuff behind a paywall? That means your best stuff's not available to the world. Are you okay with that? Come to terms with that. Figure out what works for you and your show. And if you're fine with that, then great. If not, you might want to rethink how you structure your private community so that you're still being found online. The more people who find you, the better. And yes, the private community is going to generate income for you, but you got to weigh out what your intent is and what you're happy with. Keep that in mind. If you need help, outofpodcast.ca. Take care.